I was about to say a divorce, but that don't sound right.
To be settling in. She may still dominate stages. She may still lead businesses. She may still headline stories. But nothing fills the void left by absent children. This isn't just divorce. It's consequence. A choice that reshaped her life. And it's a mother confronting the cost of a decision she can't reverse, a silence that speaks louder than any confession. Because once the cracks appeared, people began to watch more closely. Not her words, but her omissions. Observers note the shift wasn't sudden. It crept in slowly. A pause here, a deflection there, a joke landing heavier than intended. Over time, a pattern emerged. And once the public spots a pattern, silence ceases to be neutral. It becomes a statement. Fans began replaying moments once considered harmless. Clips, live streams, casual remarks, ordinary conversations now charged with meaning. Why did she joke about divorce when asked?
Honestly, I haven't really thought about anything to get myself. I'm always thinking about what I'm going to get for everybody else. So I have no clue.
What she said next might have sounded casual, even flippant, but anyone paying close attention could feel the weight beneath it. Moments like that never appear out of nowhere. They are born from pressure, from heartbreak, from words left unsaid, and emotions bottled too long. Rumor has it, Kandi Burruss' world is nothing like it was before her divorce from Todd. The woman once untouchable, gracing stages, running empires, commanding every room, now seems to be tiptoeing through something far more delicate behind closed doors. Sources claim that after losing custody, something inside Kandi fractured, and it may never be the same. Not her wealth, not her career, but her heart. For the first time. Those close to her say Kandi has privately confessed that walking away from her marriage may have cost her more than anyone could see. Not the tabloids, not public judgment, but the price of what it stole from her as a mother. Insiders insist the absence of Ace and Blay from her daily life is a wound that refuses to heal. A void that money cannot fill. A loss that fame cannot overshadow. And as the holidays draw near, that emptiness echoes even louder. Because when the lights dim and the cameras stop rolling, the question is no longer about power or prestige. It is about whether gaining it all was worth surrendering the one thing she can never get back. And that is exactly where this story begins.
I was super sad yesterday because my daughter Blaze had her dance recital yesterday. And she was like, Mommy, I want you to come to my dance recital. And I was like, I know I want to be there too but I got to show the same time as your show. So we both are going to be performing, me and my little twin, because I always say Blaze is my little twin. And,
They say nothing is the same once the court papers are signed. But those watching Kandi Burruss closely insist the real transformation didn't occur under bright courtroom lights. It happened in the quiet, unseen hours that followed. For years, Kandi appeared untouchable, a woman who managed marriage, motherhood, business, and fame without ever faltering. On stage, she radiated confidence. In interviews, she remained poised. In public, she seemed unstoppable. Yet insiders now suggest that after her divorce from Todd and the custody ruling, Kandi's world started to crumble in ways no camera ever captured. Gossip circles report that the loss was deeper than legal defeat, it was profoundly personal. Sources claim that losing daily moments with her children forced Kandi to confront doubts she had never faced before. Not as a celebrity, not as a mogul, but as a mother. And if you knew where to look, the first fractures may already have been showing.
Really good. Everybody sent me videos. My mom went. My friend Katrina, who helps with the kids, she went. Carmen went.
That moment flickered by on the live stream. No drawn-out pause, no tearful breakdown, just a few words said almost offhandedly. Yet for many watching, it felt anything but casual. Beneath that casual tone was a quiet confession. She wasn't there. Observers insist this wasn't simply about a missed recital. It carried a far heavier meaning. A collision between career and motherhood, with motherhood losing. Sources say this is where regret began to take root. They say that after the custody ruling, moments like these stopped feeling like exceptions. They became the norm. Holidays, school milestones, tiny everyday events, the ones that never make headlines but shape a parent's life. Those closest to Kandi reportedly reveal that this is when she began privately admitting something she had never voiced before. That the divorce wasn't just painful, it was a misstep. Not because of Todd, not because of the public, but because of what it stole from her emotionally. Insiders claim Kandi has confided that no amount of success could ever replace the daily presence she lost with her children, and the weight of that truth has only grown heavier with time. Again, her words were simple, almost lighthearted, yet everyone watching sensed what remained unspoken. She named every person who showed up. She acknowledged each seat filled in her absence. And then came the silence, because when everyone else is present, absence echoes louder than explanation. Sources insist that moments like these now haunt Kandi far more than any public criticism ever could. Fame didn't prepare her for this kind of loss. Money didn't soften it. Success couldn't distract from it. Insiders claim Kandi has described feeling hollow, as if she had conquered everything except the one role that truly mattered. And as the holidays draw near, that emptiness intensifies. Gossip circles report that Christmas has become especially painful. Once a season of family, laughter, and closeness, it is now shadowed by quiet absence. Decorations no longer spark joy. Lights no longer feel warm. Gifts no longer matter because what she misses isn't material. It's Ace Blaze. The ordinary, irreplaceable moments of everyday motherhood. Those familiar with the situation say Kandi now views her divorce as her gravest mistake. Not a legal error, not a PR misstep, but a personal one. A decision that stole something she can never reclaim, the daily experience of raising her children. Fans have noticed the change. Less fire, more reflection. Less certainty, more pause. The expression of someone who won the battle, but lost the part of life that counted most. And this is where the story deepens. Courts decide custody, but they cannot measure the damage to a heart. Winning on paper does not mean winning inside, and that reality seems about Christmas? Why mention missing her child's recital, but never reveal the deeper reason? Why name everyone who attended except herself? Gossip analysts claim these were no random slips. They were pressure leaks, moments where unguarded emotion slipped through before it could be contained. The internet reacted as it always does, connecting dots and spinning narratives. Speculation erupted across forums, comment sections, and reaction videos. Some viewers expressed sympathy, painting Kandi as a mother trapped between ambition and consequence. Others were sharper, insisting that choices carry weight, especially when children are involved. But one thing quickly became undeniable. The story had changed. This was no longer a tidy celebrity divorce. It was evolving into something far more unsettling, a story about regret. Sources claim that behind the scenes, Kandi's emotional state has become a growing concern among those close to her. Not because she seems weak, but because she seems drained, emotionally spent. People familiar with the situation say she has admitted feeling disconnected from the very success she once pursued with relentless drive. The achievements remain. Applause still comes, but the satisfaction no longer lands the same way. Insiders say the reason is painfully simple. She isn't sharing those moments with the people who matter most. What makes this chapter particularly heavy is timing. The holidays are a season that magnifies absence. Family photos, school breaks, long-held traditions that once felt automatic now demand effort, or don't happen at all. Gossip circles suggest Christmas has become a stark reminder of what's been lost. Decorations no longer promise joy. They highlight distance. And what she misses isn't the grand events, it's the ordinary, fleeting moments. Waking up together, spontaneous dinners, unscripted laughter, the things fame can never replace. And this is where the story takes a darker turn. Observers note that Kandi hasn't aggressively pushed back against these interpretations. No forceful denials. No tearful explanations. No attempts to publicly reshape the narrative, only quiet restraint. And in celebrity culture, restraint invites speculation. Some fans interpret it as dignity. Others see avoidance. But many read something deeper, acceptance. Psychologists and experts in celebrity behavior often note that public figures rarely articulate regret directly, especially when custody, legal outcomes, and public perception are at play. Instead, it seeps out sideways in tone, in humor, in emphasis, in what is carefully avoided. Analysts insist Kandi's recent appearances follow that exact pattern. Opinions split sharply from here. Supporters argue Kandi is navigating an impossible emotional terrain. No parent emerges from a custody battle unchanged. Grief rarely screams, it often whispers. Critics, however, maintain that responsibility cannot vanish simply because regret surfaces later. Choices made in pursuit of independence sometimes demand sacrifices that cannot be undone. Yet all sides agree on one undeniable fact: something fundamental has shifted. And the question no one can answer lingers. If Kandi could go back, would she choose differently? Gossip insiders say that question is no longer abstract. Those closest to her report, she has reflected on it openly, not in public, not on camera, but in moments of raw honesty with those she trusts. Moments when empire, achievement, and control feel hollow without daily motherhood attached. What complicates this further is perception. Kandi Burruss has built her public persona on strategy, intelligence, and unshakable composure. Admitting emotional loss doesn't fit that image. And yet, according to observers, the truth is leaking through. Not in press releases, not in interviews, but in small moments she doesn't realize are being scrutinized. The audience sees because modern gossip culture has trained them to read between the lines. The story isn't only told in words, it's told in gaps, in what's left unsaid, in what repeats. And right now, what repeats is absence. Analysts argue the custody ruling didn't just alter Kandi's schedule, it reshaped her identity. Motherhood was never a side role, it was central to her strength. Losing daily access to that role forces a reckoning that few public figures ever face. You can rebuild brands. You can relaunch careers. You can reshape public perception, reframe narratives, but you cannot reclaim lost time. Attention now begins to spread outward, toward how public conversation escalates, how speculation hardens, how pressure mounts as perception starts dictating the next moves. Because when regret becomes visible, it doesn't fade quietly. It multiplies. By the time discussion reached the stage, it had grown uncontrollable. What began as subtle observation had transformed into collective interpretation. The audience no longer waited for confirmation. They were forming conclusions on their own, emotionally, publicly, and individually. And once that happens, control slips away. Narratives don't require permission to expand. Across platforms, the same threads surfaced repeatedly. Not in headlines, not in interviews, but in comments and reactions. People weren't debating legal minutiae or timelines. They were asking something far more intimate. How much does success cost when it collides with motherhood? The tone of commentary shifted sharply. Initially measured, cautious, sympathetic. But as more viewers revisited clips, silence began to feel heavier. Moments once overlooked were now dissected frame by frame. Absence no longer seemed incidental, it felt structural. In gossip culture, there is a tipping point where speculation solidifies into belief. Not because the facts changed, but because repetition breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds certainty. By the stage, many were no longer asking if something was wrong, they were asking how long it had been wrong. Supporters defended Kandi fiercely, portraying her as a woman navigating impossible expectations. A public figure forced to display strength while absorbing private pain. A mother trapped between responsibility and consequence. They highlighted what was obvious. No parent leaves a custody battle untouched. No one loses daily moments with their children without bearing the emotional weight. And no one owes the public their grief, but the other side wasn't listening. Critics insisted that silence isn't accidental. It's calculated. That narratives are shaped as much by omission as by words. And when someone chooses not to clarify, the audience fills in the blanks. The prevailing view? Restraint wasn't dignity. It was avoidance. This divide gained momentum. Reaction channels picked sides. Comment sections fractured. Sympathy clashed with accountability, and at the center of it all sat one unspoken truth. The story had outgrown its origin. This was no longer about divorce. It was about identity. Observers began noticing subtle shifts in Kandi's public presence. Not dramatic changes, but tonal ones. Less spontaneity, more caution. Less warmth, more distance. Some read it as composure, others as containment. Psychologists studying public figures call this stage compression. Emotional expression is not gone, it is managed carefully, deliberately, because once released publicly, it cannot be reclaimed. Meanwhile, the public's appetite intensified. People wanted clarity. They wanted acknowledgement. They wanted resolution, but resolution wasn't coming. And in gossip ecosystems, lack of resolution doesn't slow interest, it accelerates it. The conversation began drifting toward permanence. Would this regret ever surface openly? Would reconciliation ever be possible? Or had the story already solidified into something irreversible? No one knew, but speculation thrived. A recurring argument surfaced across discussions. Some decisions are only understood after consequences arrive. Not in theory, not in intention, but in lived reality. Observers say that realization was settling in. What complicated matters further was Kandi's history. She wasn't impulsive. She wasn't emotionally reckless. She was strategic. And if someone so calculated still found themselves here, what did that reveal about the cost? The longer the silence persisted, the louder interpretation grew. People stopped asking for statements. They stopped expecting explanations. They assumed understanding, and assumption is the most dangerous stage of public storytelling because it resists correction. Even neutral observers began acknowledging something uncomfortable. Whether intentional or not, the narrative had locked. Kandi Burruss was no longer seen solely as a powerhouse entrepreneur or entertainment icon. She was viewed through one lens, a mother reckoning with consequence. The shift had ripple effects. Past interviews were revisited. Old quotes resurfaced. With new meaning. Moments of confidence reframed as armor. And once history is emotionally rewritten, it rarely reverts. Analysts suggest this phase marks the beginning of legacy alteration. Not the erasure of success, but the reshaping of its memory. Achievements remain, but they are viewed differently through loss, through silence, through consequence. The most striking aspect of this chapter? Nothing explosive happened. No meltdown. No confession. No confrontation. Just accumulation. And accumulation is often more powerful than revelation. The audience isn't waiting for proof. They're waiting for movement, any movement. Because when a story stalls emotionally, pressure builds. And pressure demands release. What comes next is uncertain. Public narratives rarely reverse once crystallized. They evolve, but they don't disappear. And when a figure becomes symbolic of a broader conversation, personal intent becomes secondary. The story outgrows the person. For Kandi Burruss, the road forward is narrow. Speak and risk reopening wounds. Stay silent and allow interpretation to solidify. Neither option offers comfort. And that is where this chapter leaves us. Not with answers, not with closure, but with tension that remains unresolved. Some stories don't end when decisions are made. They end when the consequences stop echoing. And for now, the echo hasn't faded. Stories like this don't conclude with court rulings. They don't conclude with statements. And they certainly don't conclude when the cameras turn off. They linger. Because beneath the headlines, beneath the speculation, beneath the applause and criticism, something far quieter is unfolding. A reckoning that announces itself without sound. A realization that doesn't need words. Power can rebuild careers. Money can replace comfort. Success can drown out noise, but time does not reset. And for those watching closely, that is the part impossible to ignore. This isn't just a celebrity divorce. It isn't about sides, blame, or public judgment. It's about what happens when the life you built collides with the life you were trying to protect. And when the cost of a decision reveals itself too late to undo. Whether the speculation is fair or not. Whether the interpretations are accurate or not. One truth remains unavoidable. Some losses do not need confirmation to be felt. They appear in pauses, in deflections, in the moments that never happen. And as this story continues to unfold, the silence surrounding it may speak louder than any statement ever could. So the question isn't only what comes next for Kandi Burruss. The question is what happens when success and sacrifice no longer run in separate lanes, but collide in real time. Because once that collision occurs, there is no clean resolution, only consequences. And those consequences do not fade quietly. Stay watching.